This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is June 6, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, what is going on, man? How are we doing?
Good. I mean, if you weren't already experiencing Magic withdrawals, maybe you already are, like we are. You now are officially also experiencing likely basketball withdrawals, because it's been a few days since we've had the option of basketball and watching the playoffs, with the finals kicking off tonight as you guys are probably hearing this. But yeah, I mean, I'm pumped to watch game one of that series. Boston decently favored, as they probably should be. But Kyrie and Luka are scary.
A lot to deal with.
And Kyrie's had it going lately. So those guys are going to have to do it all, though, in this series. But I'm excited to see how the first few games play out.
Yeah, I've been sort of enjoying a little bit of time, not obsessing about basketball 24/7 for the last month since the Magic season has ended. But as I was telling you guys right before we started to record, I'm excited for the finals. I'm finally getting that like basketball itch back. Like, we just expend so much energy and attention to Magic basketball for 6-7 months out of the year that I need a little bit of a breather personally at the end of the year. But I'm looking forward to this series. Actually, one of the questions, we're doing a mailbag, by the way. I should have mentioned that at the top. We're doing a mailbag episode where we
read a title.
Had yeah, exactly. We had people on Twitter send us different questions, and we're going to go through those. So a little Twitter mailbag here, or X mailbag. People are getting on my case for still calling it Twitter. It's like, dude, I've been calling it Twitter for freaking like 14 years. It's been X for 6-8 months, whatever. But one of the questions was, hey, like, we're all rooting for the Mavs, right? Which, are you rooting for the Mavs?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I've got a good friend of mine that is a Boston fan, but I've just got a lot of disdain for Celtics fans, to be honest, and the Celtics in general, and especially Eddie House.
True.
We don't. Eddie House can't win. Get to experience a ring from that end. So I'm rooting for Dallas for sure, and they're more fun. Like Luka and Kyrie. Kyrie's like the smoothest basketball player that I've ever seen play, and Luka's just a freak at the age that he is.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, going for the Mavs. I'm not going to be terribly upset if the Celtics end up pulling it off. I will be a little bit annoyed that Eddie House gets to celebrate and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, would be really cool to see Kyrie learn the lessons that he's learned, because, like, bro, you had it made in Cleveland next to LeBron. You guys won a title there. You got a little bit unlucky the following year, and then everything sort of blows up. But learned his lessons, right? Has been talking about this week as he's been asked by the media, and I'm sure that he appreciates the moment that they're in even that much more, given all the things that have gone on. A lot of being self-inflicted, let's be honest, with Kyrie. But especially Luka, like, we've expected this out of Luka since pretty early on. So it'll be cool to see those guys get it done. But hey, if Jason Tatum finally ends up getting over the hump, and Drew Holiday's able to win another, like, I'm not going to be mad at that either. But yeah, it would be pretty cool to see the Mavs be able to pull it off.
If Tatum and Jaylen Brown can, not finally, like, they're still relatively young and they've been killing it in the last few years as far as making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and the finals. But if they can win a ring, and I can stop seeing the memes of the guys that look like them on Twitter dancing, that would be awesome. Because at this point, that's got annoying. The other players, when like it first happens for them, like Jamal Murray had it happening in his playoff series, those were funny because I don't know that I had seen that yet. But now it's just like it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. And so I think Tatum winning Finals MVP in a championship would finally get that off my timeline, because it's excessive at this point.
Right. Well, something that I think is way more important that I want to take a minute to talk about, as we talked, on a couple episodes ago with Kevin and everything that he's going through, getting ready to have literally open heart surgery in a few weeks here. I knew that Kevin wasn't going to do this for himself. So, I took it upon myself and we set up a GoFundMe for Kevin. This is by no means like going to be, an easy, financial period for him and his family. Like, there's stuff going on with the surgery, but then he's also going to be out of work for several weeks and, he's not going to be able to provide for his family. So we set up a GoFundMe for Kevin, and in just over like 2 days, we've raised over $9,500 for Kevin and his family. Like, it's not a funny situation at all, but like, it's so incredibly unbelievable the amount of support that like the community, especially like a lot of friends of ours, like friends of the podcast, but just like Magic fans and listeners and people that just know somebody that knows Kevin are have been donating. It's just really been unbelievable. If you haven't seen it already, if you would like the opportunity to make a donation to Kevin, we're going to put the link to the GoFundMe in the podcast description. If you're on YouTube, it'll be in the YouTube video description, so you can go find that. If you can't donate, that's totally fine. Obviously, we don't want anybody to feel obligated to do that. But even if you can just share that, with somebody, if you can go to our social media accounts and share the links that we've been posting all over the place, we really appreciate it. I know Kevin and his family are incredibly appreciative. Like, this is just a major lift off of them. One thing that they won't have to worry about is Kevin is fighting for his life, essentially, right? Like, this needs to be done or Kevin won't be around. And the recovery, I went and actually watched this surgery on YouTube.
You're a psycho.
And like the recovery is going to be brutal for Kevin. So the fact that we've been able to have a very small hand in this and just see the community rally around Kevin has been like, if this podcast ends up never being anything, but this is, to me, this is the best and most awesome thing that we've been able to do so far, especially for like our friend. This will all have been worth it. Just been really cool.
Yeah, obviously, like going the whole, like the entire goal is just that they won't have to think as much about finances during this time, because going through something like that, as like traumatic and through that recovery process as it will be, the last thing they should have to think about is bills or where's our next, like, where's a meal how are we gonna make a meal? Like, his wife might not want to cook and she's taking care of Kevin and she's got the kids and all that. So that's, and also pro tip, if there's someone in your life that is going through a hard thing, just buy them dinner, like buy them a gift card, buy them something, because quite frankly, telling someone like, hey, let me know if you need anything, they're not going to tell you when they need something. So just do something. So that, like, whether it's a GoFundMe or a meal train for them or whatever, that type of stuff goes a long way. And this has just been incredible. Magic fans continue to just blow us out of the water as far as the support that they show for the Magic and for us. It just seems like every time we set a bar for things like this, or for silly things in perspective of like post-game live viewership and all that kind of thing, they always are going above and beyond, and they always just crush the numbers and our expectations. So shout out to you guys. It's been nothing short of incredible, and a miracle how much has been raised in the last couple days for Kevin.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. So like I said, that's going to be in the podcast description. It's going to be in the YouTube video description. So if you're just able to share that, or if you are able to give, I know that, Kevin and his family appreciate it, and we all appreciate it. You guys have just been awesome. Now, we do have a little bit of Magic news here, Magic adjacent maybe. The German national team, ahead of the Olympics, have named their, I think it's 16-man roster. Isaac Bonga, Oscar da Silva, Niels Gaffey, Justus Halutz, David Kramer, Leon Kratzer, Mauro Lowe, Andreas Obst, Louis Olindi, I hope I said that right, Dennis Schroeder, Daniel Tice, Johannes Voigtman, Johannes Thiemann, Franz Wagner, Moritz Wagner, and Nick Weiler-Babb. A lot of those guys part of the German national team that won the FIBA World Cup last summer. No Isaiah Hartenstein, no Maxi Kleber. I know those were two guys that a lot of people had in their mind that might join the German national team for the Olympics. It seems like whatever happened with Dennis Schroeder and Maxi Kleber has really messed that up, which is unfortunate. But I know he's also, got the finals going on and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm really encouraged by the fact that it's basically the same roster from the FIBA World Cup team. And I can't wait for the Olympics to watch these guys, to watch Team USA. And I just love watching the Olympics. Like in general, the Olympics are always fun to watch. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to get into our mailbag here. I've got a pretty decent list. I'm just going to start with one, Mr. Tony Quinn on X. He asks, are the Adidas gray sleeve jerseys the greatest Magic jerseys ever? It's just a ridiculous thing to ask.
No.
No.
They're not, Tony.
Quite
and you
frankly,
know the
no.
answer, and that's why you asked it.
Yeah.
But you wanted it, and you got it. The answer is absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But what is, let's turn around then. What is the greatest Magic jersey of all time?
I have said this a lot of times. For me, it is the electric blue pinstripe jerseys. You could go the black with the pinstripes. Like, any of the pinstripe variations are awesome. I will say, this past year's Stars.
Yeah, buddy.
If the Magic's goal,
you're a new man.
If the Magic's goal was to really play into those that thought that the Stars jerseys were like one of the best of all time, and also convert people to loving the Stars jerseys, they did it with me. And I think that this jersey made me realize really what I hated about the jersey was the material and how silky it looked. And now it's just silky smooth, like
baby, like jazz.
Yeah, so it's hilarious that like the material is what did it for me, but it really did. Like it was that's what really, I guess I didn't even know it until I was like, wait, why do I like these, and why did I hate the other ones? And I'm looking and comparing. I'm like, yes, the material, that's it. But yeah, so for me, it's still the electric blue pinstripe. Those are just like incredible to me. But the Stars is probably like third behind the black with the pinstripes. This variation that we just had this past season for me is like third.
It's really funny how like your taste changes over time, right? Like when I was 13, 14 years old, everybody was wearing, the two-tone, like the foot action colored extra large tees and like the Gerbeau jean shorts or like the South Pole jean shorts. And I look at that stuff, I'm like, what the hell were we doing, right? So I don't know if it's that, because to me, like the modern cut jerseys that we see now that are a little bit more tighter fitting, you have the shorter shorts that the guys are wearing now. To me, the last couple of classic edition jerseys, the 2019 electric blue and white pinstripes, like the Nike cut, and then this year the Nike cut of the Stars jerseys, like to me those are the two greatest jerseys in Magic history. Obviously they're paying homage to jerseys that we've already seen in the past, but if you're asking me like what are the two best, for me, I'm putting the Stars above everything, because it just, there's a lot of nostalgia. There's just the experience of this whole season plays into that for me. I will admit that. But other than that, like that 2018, 2019 pinstripe jersey was just incredible. Okay, next question here. This is from Hoodie Foltz on X. It says, as someone who personally wants to trade picks for a point guard of the future, what players do you want to see us target? So for me with this one, it's not necessarily a trade, right? Because a guy, like D'Angelo Russell, if you're high on him, or Tyus Jones, like if you're really high on Tyus Jones, that's a guy that's going to be available in free agency. This guy isn't necessarily a point guard, but I think he would start on this team, like Malik Monk. Those are guys that we wouldn't have to make trades to acquire. If you are making a big trade for a point guard, obviously like a name like Trae Young comes up. Outside of that, like I'm more interested in the free agent market in terms of acquiring like the point guard of the future. Luke, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, we've made it clear who our point guard choice is. And
really quickly, I'll throw Anthony Simons in there. Would definitely trade for Anthony Simons.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Anthony Simons would be good. There's like not really talk, but this is also one of the questions maybe, so this could fall into it. There are conversations, I guess, being had about Michael Porter Jr. I haven't really looked into these reports. I don't know that there's a whole lot to them, but Michael Porter Jr., if he is someone on the table, then you're going to go for him. But I don't foresee that happening. But yes, of course, a Michael Porter Jr. But yeah, if we're sticking with point guards and what we're looking for there, I'm absolutely just going through free agency for a guy like Tyus.
Next question from Bezzy Magic. He asks, do you think there is still value in maintaining a significant bulk of the team beyond the three keepers? I'm assuming he's referring to Paolo, Franz, and Jalen. Mm-hmm. Beyond the three keepers to maintain the Coach Mosley culture and identity?
To be honest, no.
Interesting.
And the reason I say that is because, so at first my knee-jerk reaction was, yes, we've talked about how much chemistry this team has and how it's not normal how much these guys love each other and all that kind of stuff. But when I think about who are the guys that do that bring this team together, I've got to think first and foremost it's probably Jalen Suggs, as far as like, and I don't know the dynamics of friendship, but just knowing what we see of Jalen and just conversations we've had with Jalen makes it seem like you're best friends, like with everybody, it seems, because he does it like with us. And so I know that like he is the heartbeat on the court and I believe off the court. So as long as you've got him there, Paolo, the guys respect him. They seem to all love him and he loves them. Franz, much of the same. As long as you are keeping those guys together, I think that you can afford to consolidate, like we've talked so much about, with younger guys on the roster who just maybe haven't turned out the way you want, and that you're able to kind of do a little bit of an overhaul, tinkering at least in the pecking order with this team and moving some of those guys down in that pecking order, getting rid of others. As long as you're keeping that core three together, I think chemistry would be just fine.
I would disagree just by the wording of the question where it's asked, is there still value in maintaining a significant bulk of the team? Like you're not going to turn over like half the roster, right? Like you're just not going to do that in one off season for a team that was as successful as they were and is still growing. So because of that, like, do we see like maybe 3 or 4 guys shuffled out? That would be understandable. But beyond that, I do feel like maybe you're flying a little bit too close to the sun there in terms of like messing with team chemistry, but I could be wrong. Let's go to the next one from Tim Geist. What is your preferred strategy for the draft? A, an older, more experienced player that can contribute to winning right away. B, a young, rather raw prospect with high upside that will get the jet treatment in terms of like going to the G League. Or C, try to trade the pick even though you won't get much in return.
This one's pretty easy for me. C, trade the pick. I don't care what you get in return. It's not about the return. I'm trying to lessen the amount of confusion on this roster. So I like, and if I was to pick like a runner up of those choices, I'd pick someone that can contribute now. That is with the caveat that this front office doesn't think A, B, and Jet are going to get a lot of playtime this season, and this player comes in and they contribute right away. Now that would feel ridiculous to me if that were the case, unless you can just find some unicorn with your pick in the first round who is just body is NBA ready. They play decent defense and they could shoot the ball. And you think that, like I said, that's with the caveat that Jet and AB are going to be kind of on the back burner. Otherwise, I don't want all three of those, a draft pick and then those two guys in the rotation this year.
Yeah, for me, I probably would lean towards C, which is try to trade the pick, even though you probably won't get much in return. Second for me would be B, the young, raw prospect, that you would send to the G League. But and I hate being an advocate for like the owners. This isn't really an advocacy for the owners. It's more of like just team cap space in general. Like if you could do what the MLB does, where you draft a guy, you send him down to AA or AAA or whatever, and then he doesn't really make as much money until he's officially like on the major league club. if you could do that and just sort of like draft and stash guys in the G League and have them to develop there for a couple of years, and like their rookie scale contract didn't count against like the main club's cap, I would be way more a proponent of like, okay, like just it doesn't matter. Like you have a first round pick, just keep taking swings. Draft a guy that you think has high upside, throw him into the G League, even if he's there 2 or 3 years before he really pops. We're not there yet. I don't know that the NBA and the G League will ever be sort of to that extent. But this team, Jett Howard's going to be your rookie next year, essentially, you would think. I don't think this team really has room for another rookie. And then when you look ahead to next year's draft, where we have 2 first-round picks, that's also going to be a little bit dicey there. Okay, next one here from Barry Hill 002. Chances are roster improvements come internally. AB should see more minutes. Jett was a lottery pick that could get some run. Lots of guys will be better shooters than they showed this season. Franz and Cole specifically could see continued improvement from JI, AB, Dell in shooting. Luke, what do you think of the Magic basically improving internally?
I think, yeah, of course, they can improve internally, but that doesn't mean you sit on your hands because you're banking on just internal improvement. Could this front office afford it with how long the leash is now, that they did overachieve this past season, take a talented team to 7 games? Could they afford to basically just run it back fully, develop internally, and keep it going that way for this next season and then see? Sure. Would feel irresponsible to me. Would feel like you are killing momentum, right? So yes, you can absolutely improve internally, but I don't think that it means that you just sit on your hands. There's no reason it should mean that. So yeah, the short answer, yes.
Yeah, I agree as well, pretty much with every sentiment. Yes, there is going to be some internal development, but you also need to step on the gas a little bit. You got to bring somebody in here that's going to speed things along, that is a little bit further in their development, and that is just better than what we currently have here. So yeah, I definitely think there's going to be room for internal improvement and development, but you also need to go out and bring somebody in to help push the group along as well. Next one here, this is from Illuminacho83. He says, aside from Jalen Suggs, who else do you guys have a personal relationship with on the team? This is an interesting question, obviously, because like we've had Jalen on the show multiple times. In what we do, you have to be very careful when you think about like personal relationships with these guys, because it's just the nature of the relationship between player and media, right? Like, even though these guys, might like us and they come on the show and they are very friendly to us, are if I invite one of these guys to my birthday party, they ain't coming, right? Like, these guys got better things to do. So, I wouldn't necessarily say that we have like a personal relationship with any of these guys. We are very friendly. Obviously, they know that we are massive fans of them. We love these guys. We root for them. Jalen, obviously, he's been on the show a couple of times. Terrence Ross is another guy that comes to mind. Like, if we're talking about guys that like I could message right now and ask them a question or see how they're doing, like it's Jalen, Terrence Ross, and then JI, like just all the guys that we've had on the show pretty much.
Yeah. In the past, them and then RJ Hampton.
Yeah, RJ Hampton, right,
was another one that somehow ended up with the dude's phone number. That was ridiculous. Like, that was hilarious, because I remember he was at Cavo's, and I believe that I just asked him like, hey, could we have you on the show sometime or something to that
like
effect.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, what's the best way?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, here's my number. And I was like, what the heck? Yeah. So those are the ones that like it definitely hurts when they leave the team, because it's like that's a relationship that you absolutely like. That's a great relationship to have, but unfortunately he's not with the team anymore. But that was another one. I'm trying to think if there was any other ones, but I think that's it. They like those 4 guys are the ones that we've had decent.
Vooch, is another one. We've talked with Evan a couple of times, Evan Fournier, which shocker, newsflash. I was arguing with people again on Twitter this week about Evan Fournier. I'll never, like, nobody has been able to present like an actual fair, logical argument to change my mind whatsoever. And every time I come back and I'm just like, yeah, but like all the things you're saying aren't really his fault. I digress. Evan Fournier is a guy that we've tried to get on the show, and it just hasn't quite worked out. So unfortunately, it's more former players than it is current players. We're always trying to work on like fostering those relationships with current players, and you have to show them like, hey, like we're not here to be like, oh, we gotcha, or clickbait like kind of stuff. Like we want to be advocates for those guys and just to help fans get to know them better, so they want to root for those guys more. Like to me, that's like the biggest like goal in my mind when we have these guys on the show. Like obviously it's great for numbers, like, oh, Jalen Suggs is on the podcast, or oh, they got to talk to Paolo Banchero for a few minutes. All that stuff is great, but like for me, like I just want fans to get to know these players more. Like that's what I really get out of it.
And for what it's worth, you're not going to catch us holding back on critiquing these guys just because.
Right.
That's
the hardest part too.
For sure. That you've got to separate like the person or the personality that you enjoy from what's on the court, and because otherwise you lose credibility. Like you can't not critique. So I got some in my throat. But anyway,
hey,
but anyway, yeah, just one that felt like it needed to be clarified.
Yeah. Next one here from K Dizzy for Shizzy. What in your opinion, would be the most realistic year the Magic could win a championship? I've been thinking about this. I'll say like 2027, like 3 years from now. Like 2 years seems like it's a bit too early. I think 3 years from now is like the realistic point where I could be like, yeah, if you told me the Magic won a title in 2027, I'd be like, it's a little bit early, but I don't think it's like impossible.
Yeah, I'd say 2029.
Oh my goodness, that's
the important thing
there.
Here. Listen, it doesn't. Will it suck if we have countless years of making it to the conference finals and the finals, much like the Celtics, right? Yes, of course. And eventually you're going to want to get over the hump of making the conference finals and making the finals but not winning it. But you're still going to have enjoyment in those seasons because it's like, we're incredible. And so I think that you're going to, so what do you have to do, right? Next season, you're going to, your goal at that point in the, basically the, what is that, 24-25 season is going to be make it past the first round. Like that's going to be the goal, right? Make it past the first round, be a decently high seed, 4-3 seed. And that's going to be my goal for next year. Then you just kind of go incrementally, right? The next season, it's very well that you could just make it to the second round regardless of what you do next year, right? So there's going to be, you're going to get there and then you're going to fail. You're going to make it further. You're going to fail. So I just think 2029 feels safe. And who knows, right? We might be making the conference finals consistently, but not be able to make it over that hump. There's just a lot of different ones when it comes to the playoffs. And it is so difficult to win one basketball game, much less a 7-game series. So the important thing here is that Alex Martin's saying that it would happen before 2030 seems realistic at this point. So it's a good feeling to not feel like we're a decade away and the current situation this team is in is going to not be the one to take us to get a championship. This current core with some obviously improvements to the roster absolutely can win a championship in the next 4 to 5 years.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a quick break here. Now, normally this would be where I talk about Patreon and talk about the folks that help financially support the show, and where I would almost like borderline try to convince you to join the Patreon. If you've been thinking about joining the Patreon recently, if you're going to join at the rookie level, all-star, Hall of Fame, elite tier, any of those, instead of doing that, please go to the GoFundMe that we've set up for Kevin this week and or this month, whatever, like that $10, $15 that you were going to set aside, give that to the GoFundMe.
Are we putting that in the description?
I'm putting the GoFundMe link in the episode description. So if you're on Apple or if you're on Spotify, it'll be in the podcast episode description on your phone. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be the top link underneath the YouTube description. So this normally where I would ask for that, but instead, if you weren't going to do that, then just ignore what I'm saying. But if you were planning on joining the Patreon this month, instead of doing that, put it off for a month. Don't forget about it. Come back next month and join the Patreon at patreon.com/the6man show. But this month, please just give that to the GoFundMe, and so that we can continue to help Kevin and his family. Now back to the mailbag here. This one comes from let's see, it's actually Jonathan Umanzo 3 says, how much influence do you think Paolo or his recent comments have on the front office decision making this summer, or what influence will he have in the near future? If you're asking me, Paolo tells you that you want something, like you don't have to, like, if he's like, oh, I want this guy. I don't know that we're necessarily at that point yet, but he's not saying that. He's coming out and giving like a general idea of some of what he would like to see on the roster. Like, he doesn't want to be the point guard, right? Like, he wants to be heavily featured in the offense and be more of a hub. Doesn't want to necessarily be the guy to set up every little thing. So I would listen to that, and I would go out and get a point guard or a guard that can help facilitate and take a little bit of that offensive load off of Paolo Banchero. If I'm the front office, your ears are perking up at this point when Paolo says he wants something. We're not at the point where like he's going in and making demands and he's pulling the LeBron levers. Nothing like that just yet. That will and should come. I think as he continues to grow and just sort of make his mark on this organization in the league. But the front office should definitely be paying attention when Paolo Banchero says that he wants something.
I also think Paolo knows this is the direction they're going. I think it's been communicated. I would assume because of that same point that you're saying of like, hey, if I'm the front office, I listen. There's no reason Paolo isn't in on front office talks. I know in the past, like with guys on the team that we've talked to, and I won't say a name because I don't remember if we said it on air or off, but they said like we find out when you guys find out about certain acquisitions and transactions that happen. Legitimately, we're kept in the dark on like everything. But with Paolo, I can see that would be different. So I would think that Paolo has influence on them, on that front office, on our front office, and that the front office has influence on Paolo. So I'd say they're definitely on the same wavelength. And I don't think Paolo says that unless he knows that that's the direction this front office is headed. Because like you said, he's not to the point where he's just like, hey, I want this to happen. I want this player, even if he's speaking generally, I want this to happen. It's like, yes, he is incredible, but I don't think we're there. Where he says it in the front office is just like, sir, yes, sir. Right? They think he's going to be great, obviously, but they're going to want more greatness as next season happens, especially, and then maybe we start getting to that point. Anyway, yeah, absolutely. There's influence on both sides. So Paolo's comments, that's what gives me confidence that they're going to go out and get a point guard that does quote unquote set the table, like he said in that piece.
Next one, this one comes from Hunnit_emoji on Twitter. He says, is there any realistic trade out there where you might consider giving up JI this offseason? And then he put in parentheses, Anthony, Trey, Walker Kessler, absolutely not. No offense there, Hunnit emoji. Anthony Simons, Trey Young. Anthony Simons would interest me, just speaking generally. Making a move for Anthony Simons would probably interest me more than making a move for Trey, just because of like the financial implications that trading for Trey Young would have on this team, where Anthony Simons isn't really in that same ballpark in terms of annual value just yet. Both of those guys, if you're giving up a guy like Jonathan Isaac, that is such a massive shift away from your current identity. Like you're making the ultimate defensive sacrifice for what would be like an ultimate offensive addition. I would have a hard time pulling the trigger on that given the way that this team has been constructing the roster over the last couple of years and what their identity has now become, being one of the best and elite defensive units in the league. So I don't know that there is a realistic trade out there that I'd say put JI, in that deal. I do think when you start talking about a Trey, or if you were to talk about like a DeJounte Murray, right? Like a guy that would help lift up the offense, but wouldn't also just like completely crater the defense. If you move Jonathan Isaac, the odds are the defense is not going to be as good as it was this year. But does there come a point where losing a little bit on defense is worth what you would maybe gain offensively with a guy like that? I'm glad that I don't have to make those types of decisions because I have just like an emotional attachment to Jonathan Isaac. I will be very honest about that. I would hate to us to have sat through the last few years of just hoping and wishing and literally praying that if this guy can get back and what will he look like healthy. And now that we get here, it's like, okay, we're going to move on from him. That would be tough for me to handle emotionally. And that is why I will never be the general manager or the president of basketball operations for the Orlando Magic, because I would not be able to take my emotions out of that role. Now, if I just take all the emotion out of it and I sit back, yes, if that type of deal presents itself, you probably have to pull the trigger. But I don't know.
I got a player for you. Okay. The player I'm thinking, that just to gauge where you're at, right? You said Simons you would entertain.
I'm nervous.
How about one Mikal Bridges?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
It would literally kill me.
I wanted to make sure.
First of all, if we're just talking about like a durability standpoint, quite possibly the most durable guy in the entire league, gives you elite defense.
Yep.
And what he would bring offensively, in terms of shooting to this team, something like that, you probably would have to make that deal. And I would be on the phone with Brooklyn sobbing as I accepted the terms of that agreement.
Yeah, I think you have to. And I was hoping that would be your answer. But yeah, and I think that it's not that it's going to happen, right? But I'm talking about the likelihood of him being traded in general.
Yeah, I think that's very, very unlikely.
That he gets traded to us, but I do think Brooklyn has a great pick in the draft. They're seemingly stuck after finishing the year the way that they did. I wouldn't be shocked if Bridges gets dealt. I don't think it's to the Magic. But if we're talking in pure hypotheticals, Bridges, and then you obviously will have to trade JI and whatever else to make it work on what Brooklyn wants. But if JI is the centerpiece of that deal, then I think you'd have to do it.
Yeah, you probably would. And just in general, again, I feel like the likelihood that JI is dealt is, I don't see them shaking up this team and their identity to that extent this offseason.
No, me either.
And I don't want them to. I don't want them to trade JI, if I'm being honest. F. Killy Lee says, what was your first Magic memory? My first Magic memory wasn't actually a game. My first Magic memory is playing NBA Live 2003, I think it was. I was at Will's house. Those of you that remember Will, I was at Will's house, and I think we were playing it on freaking GameCube. The summers I would live at that dude's house. So we would hang out in the pool. His mom, would make us lunch. We'd play basketball in his driveway, barefoot. Then we'd go inside and we'd fire up the GameCube. And I wasn't into basketball at the time, but we were playing NBA Live. And we were playing as the Magic, and I was like, dude, this number one, this guy is amazing. Who is this guy? And he's like, it's Tracy McGrady. And then I fell in love with Tracy McGrady, and then I started watching Magic games, fell in love with the Magic, and here we are, 20, ish years later.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, I'll keep it pretty brief because I think I've told the story once or twice already. But I would say I obviously remember that I was a Magic fan. Dwight comes on board, all that kind of stuff. But I'd say my first like super like vivid that I'm like, oh, I can pinpoint this was when the Magic completed the sweep against the Bobcats solely because like it was a school night, I think, or something. I went to bed and my dad was like, if you have a broom outside your door, when you wake up, that means we swept the Bobcats. And so like that was like Christmas morning to me, opening my door and like there was a broom there. So I'd say that that's like I don't know if it's my first, but it's probably my fondest of like early fandom aside from like making the finals and that run and everything. Um, but yeah, that's probably where what I think of when I think Magic memories from when I was younger.
The Ginger 42. He had basically the same question. He said you probably mentioned it on a previous pod, but how did your Magic fandom start? Also, best wishes to Kevin. So that was kind of both of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of answered just there. Kenneth underscore Adler asks, what do you think the front office feels about AB and Jet getting consistent rotation minutes next year? Upgrade at the guard position is a need, but do you think they feel they can step in and fill that, or will there be an emphasis on acquiring better guards? I do think there should be an emphasis on acquiring a starting guard. I feel confident that AB will be in the rotation at some point, in some facet, I should say, next season. Jet, I feel pretty good about, but I'm just really not sure. Like, if you had to like put a gun to my head and ask me to tell you what the front office feels about AB or Jet, I'd tell you to pull the trigger because I have no idea
Yeah,
for a lot of
I,
reasons that we've
I
talked about, ad nauseum.
this is a cop out, but don't know to either of them, to be honest with you. I just don't know. With AB, they sent kind of mixed signals this year. I understand why they started him when they did, just so to keep continuity of the bench, who was absolutely crushing other benches. So they started him and then just put him back, obviously, when we were healthy again at that position. But I don't know because then you're looking at, like, if you think about, like, if Fultz is gone and you get a guard to start, then that obviously that point guard goes in the starting lineup. You could say AB hypothetically gets Fultz's minutes, but if you're attaining another player because Gary Harris is out the door or whatever, there's just so many moving parts, and I have no idea how the chips are going to land. So with Jet, I'm not convinced he's going to be in the rotation next year. I'm hoping that he is, but if the Magic make a couple splashes in free agency, like they can with all the cap space they have, it wouldn't shock me if they're just like not that we're not in a spot to do this. It would be crazy, but it would also mean that they think the Magic could be a top 4 or 3 seed next year.
Let's see. I think we have just one more here. This is JP051012. For the right trade, would you trade Cole Anthony? Let me just say, for the right trade, you're probably trading anybody on this roster that is not named Paolo Banchero, right? Like even Franz Wagner. Like if you get some kind of crazy offer where it's like Franz Wagner and another player and some picks and you're making that type of move for a Luka or something ridiculous like that, of course you have to make that deal. I genuinely think the only player on this roster that is 100% truly untouchable would be Paolo Banchero. Franz, I would probably put pretty close. Like it would take just a crazy, ridiculous offer to move on from Franz, but pretty much anyone not named those guys. Am I saying that I would want to trade other guys? No, I'm not even saying I would necessarily want to trade Cole Anthony, but like for the right deal, you would have to be willing to part with almost anybody on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And for what it's worth, with Cole, I would want to see before I entertain like before I would say I want him gone. I definitely want to see what he does the upcoming season, and then we can have further conversations one way or the other about Cole Anthony. But as far as the right trade, yeah, anybody but Paolo, I'm trading for the quote unquote right trade. So, yeah, I'd like to see Cole see what he can do with another season under his belt, and we will see how it plays out.
All right, that's going to do it for this one for the mailbag. I really like the mailbags. Like, it's just like a nice change of pace. Maybe we'll do a few more of these throughout the summer as like things continue to unfold and dynamic shift on the Magic. But yeah, thanks everybody for sending in questions. Unfortunately, we didn't get to everybody. Some people asked sort of like the same question as somebody else, and just for time purposes, we didn't get into all of them. But appreciate everybody that sent their questions in. Again, the GoFundMe for Kevin, the description is in this episode description. If you're listening on a podcast platform, or if you're on YouTube, the link to that is going to be in the YouTube video description. Luke, I don't know that we have anything else that we need to mention before we go ahead and sign off here.
I don't think so. We haven't had any real crazy Magic news or anything like that. So it's been pretty quiet. I don't think we missed anything. So let's get out of here.
Yeah, we got about a week and a half ish until we could potentially start hearing news on like Gary Harris, Markelle Fultz, that kind of stuff. Like the day that the finals ends, you can start negotiating with free agents on your own team now. So maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks tops, we'll start hearing some news around the NBA, Magic related or not. And for a guy like Malik Monk, that could mean he re-signs with the Kings in that time. So for a guy that a lot of Magic fans have on their summer wish list, we'll be paying attention to all of that type of news around the league. But that is going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for all the questions, and thanks for listening. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!